Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this meeting. And today we talk about the automotive supply chain. Today we talk about this 150 euros of export, 150 billion euros export, 3.5 jobs related to production, which means something like 8.5% of the workforce in Europe. Automotive sector is going through a beautiful, an extraordinary transition and transformation, and this transformation also has repercussions on the whole value chain when it comes to components as well and spare parts, which is going through a deep change also at the level of company cars. The whole thing is changing. Components are changing, and also challenges are changing, and also opportunities are changing. Maybe today we are witnessing more opportunities than challenges, thanks to the arrival of new realities, of new things. We know for sure that in the past month we have been talking about new Chinese actors and players who are available to buy the Motor Valley in Italy is an extraordinary place when it comes to OEMs, when it comes to constructors, when it comes to competencies and skills in the whole supply chain. So will we be able to transform these challenges into opportunities? We do not have so much time, but we have so many guests today. This is all from my side, so I leave the floor to the first speaker. The first speaker for today comes from a company named Algorithm. This is a startup of Italian high tech, and it was founded by Jacopo Piana. The main product of Quick Algorithm is named COPS AI. I was explained how it works. It is a wireless and plug-and-play solution which is applied to industrial machines for the energy monitoring and the transition. So you can avoid the inaction time, and we know that this is very important. There was a round of 1 million euro together with the university, Bocconi University, and investors. The jury prize for AI for Future, and I now leave the floor to Jacopo Piana, who is the founder of Quick Algorithm. A big round of applause.
Prego.
I'm happy of being here. My name is Jacopo Piana. My background is quite different from the mechanic industry. I work with finance. When my PhD was over, I had this intuition. I thought that automation in the financial world could have been applied to installation systems, machines, and cars, because my father was an engineer, an automation engineer at an industrial level. He has been doing this job for 40 years, and he helped me out with this. What did we do? Well, we solved a problem, and the problem was, basically speaking, enabling all companies, both big and small, making energy waste and downtime more efficient. These are two relevant problems today. They are more and more relevant problems today. We are talking about, everybody talks about increasing margins and efficiency. So averagely, the companies lose between 3 and 10% of their turnover due to downtime, unforecasted downtime. So this is a huge value. Globally speaking, it corresponds to the GDP in Germany. All the unexpected downtimes means that it is as if Germany would stand still for 1 year doing nothing. This means also machines that consume too much when the system is stopped. We are increasing automation because everybody is becoming older, or because everybody wants to be more efficient, but at the same time technicians are not there to monitor these machines, and technicians are always rare today. So we have implemented this solution, and according to this solution we can reduce the energy waste during the processing and the manufacturing, and we can reduce downtime by 60%. One of the main obstacles found by companies is that they don't want to start adventures who last 6 to 10 months. They cost millions and millions of euros, and then they still have these problems. So we help the companies take the data from the car, from the machine, making it more sensitive, creating an alert system, and giving recommendations to the end user. And we can do so in 20 minutes time. So as somebody would say, this is the unique value proposition. This is the main difference compared to the market, is that we do that in an automated way and in a quicker way. The automotive sector is the most relevant part for us, but at a mechanical level. We do not only have clients in Europe, but also in other countries, extra EU countries. Our philosophy is that each of you can buy these systems as if you were buying an IKEA piece of furniture, without any consulting from abroad or from a third party. Success case is one of our customers who decided to start to use these systems to monitor the implementation, and after 6 months they reduced the machine downtime by 70 hours, and they did that autonomously. We have a positioning on the market. We talk about ourselves as someone who can give benefits in energy and also in predictive maintenance. It is very easy to use. Our solution is very easy to be used. Our team is made of 15 people. Andrea, and we are now organizing an investment round to push sales, to support sales, because the product is there, the machine works. We are at a break-even point situation, and we need to push the commercial side of it with a higher objective, which is being bought by an industrial player. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Okay, we'll stand here. You have been quick. God, you have been quick. I was talking about the transformation phase the automotive supply chain is going through everywhere, all over the place, all over the world, not only in Italy, in the Motor Valley area, but also all over Europe, all across Europe. So we have asked the Boston Consulting Group, which is a group from Hamburg, we have asked them a study, a report, because we want to know at what stage we are, what are the risks and what are the opportunities for the European supply chain, automotive supply chain, in order to be relevant. I would like to call on the stage now Alexander Brenner from Boston Consulting Group. He will give the speech right now. He will be talking about his view regarding the whole supply chain in automotive. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you so much. So, first of all, I have to apologize. I will be speaking in English. Second is, I'm going to keep you inside and not outside with the beautiful weather. And the third is, I'm keeping you away from the future of racing. So I'm really excited that you're actually interested in talking about supply chain, here in Italy especially. So really, really grateful for all of the speakers today. What would I like to do today? I would like to speak about the challenges and opportunities along the supply chain, because we do believe in the current situation of the entire automotive industry, whether it's the car manufacturers, whether it's the suppliers, whether it's retail wholesale level, that really nowadays you have to be in your A game when it comes to your costs. And a big part of your cost is directly linked to the supply chain, whether it's the costs in the individual steps, whether it's the net working capital along this, and this is really you should be looking at, first thing. Second thing is, as the speaker before me was saying, there's a true opportunity when it comes to AI. All of the parts are moving, all of the data is moving. We talk about big data, we talk about movements, transactions, machines, and the opportunity is truly very, very exciting. So I tried to choose a very interesting quote from an Italian person, and I'm completely convinced about he says that we are not saying that you have to exchange, when you talk about AI, you do not have to exchange people necessarily with AI, but there is along the value chain lots of knowledge which can then be further enriched with technology, with AI, with generative, with large language models, and this is truly something all of you here in this room have to think about. If you're not thinking about this, at least one of your competitors is thinking about this. If you're a supplier, you can be very certain that the car manufacturers, that your customers will call you next week, Monday maybe, and will talk about the alleged potential of AI along your supply chain, and whether you're doing it or not, they will be asking for, let's say, claims. So this is truly something very exciting. What I'm going to talk about, so as you heard in the introduction, I'm Alex. I'm leading managing director and partner at BCG, and I have the pleasure to be leading across our European region our business with automotive suppliers. We did a study quite recently. I would like to explain a little bit about our study and the challenges which we do see in the past years. You have to keep in mind that I'm going to show a couple of numbers, a couple of statements. We did the study before the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, but this apparently is, unfortunately, in the last few years, a situation that whenever you do a study, whenever you look at numbers and you think about the future, most probably the future is ending up at least a little bit worse than what you have been planning for. So, and that probably is a very big learning. If you think about, let's say, the dot-com crisis, if you think about the global financial crisis, if you think about COVID, if you think about the situation in Ukraine, if now you think about the Strait of Hormuz. So every few years, all of you will remember that a couple of years ago, we spoke about the black swan events, which everybody talks about, never comes. They are coming literally every year, right? And this is a big problem. So one ask is for you to be flexible, to be quick, and this is where also technology, AI can help you. Maybe going here. So what did we actually do? We did an interview with more than 100 CEOs across the world, and the sentiment was actually quite interesting and different between the European Union, between North America, and between Asia. When you spoke to Asian CEOs and companies, they were actually quite positive about their situation, because you have to think about the Chinese, as was said in the introduction, whether it's a car manufacturer, whether it's a supplier, they really do feel, as compared to 10, 15 or 20 years around, where, let's say, the Chinese wanted to get the technology and asked European players to help them. Now actually it's turned around, and everybody, or a lot of companies, are looking towards Asia and towards China to get R&D capacity, to get insights, to get also access to the market. If you looked at North America, they were actually also quite positive. So whatever different, let's say, discussions we do have in the room about North America, about the, let's say, North American US political administration, they are actually quite bullish, they are quite positive about the industry doing. What was a little bit shocking is actually the average sentiment across the European region, where the players were very cautious, they were actually quite bearish, looking into the future and trying to actually balance about the different aspects. The outlook from them, and again, this is half a year old, the outlook was actually that the feeling was that the situation already back then was going to get already a little bit tougher, which usually means then, and we do see it right now, if the economy goes down, if the share of wallet of the households are going down, there are less new vehicles being sold, it's more difficult for the automotive suppliers, and it actually goes all through the supply chain. And the major topics on the one hand side are actually on everything related to geopolitics. You have to be quite aware, and it has to be a CEO topic on the one hand side. What is going on? What is the impact on my client relationships, on my P&L, on the supply chain, etc.? And on the other hand aspects, everything which goes into the direction of efficiency, which is most probably nowadays the topic of AI along the value chain, above the supply chain, also has to be on the CEO agenda, right? So the CEO these days has to be the chief AI officer of its company, right? You can see here that, of course, and this is a little bit showing you the time series, that of course across the automotive industry, and that's not a surprise, already for the past couple of years, the topic of economic and financial pressure was number one. However, two interesting things you can see here, that first of all, the innovation and technological change element is actually coming up. So that would, for example, include AI and other innovations along the supply chain. And the second aspect which is going up is geopolitics and trade. Literally every 6 months there is a new black swan popping up, whether it's a war, whether it's tariffs, whether it's other, let's say, business deals from somebody across the ocean. This is something everybody in the industry has to deal with and has to tackle. And it has to be on the agenda of your customers and of yourselves. If we look maybe now one step deeper into what is actually the aftermarket and where we do believe you can unlock the potential and what is actually the starting point. You could actually have a look at this picture, and this is just the aftermarket of the European components with a positive or a negative viewpoint. If you have been used as an investor or as an industry player to very high percentages of growth, you would be on one hand side looking at this and say, wow, this is only low single-digit movement, this is not so attractive, this is not really a business I want to be in. The other lens, and me personally, I do think in this, if you really think about what is standing behind this, you do not have this typical changing from one year to another situation of how many new vehicles are being sold in a market, but you're actually doing business with a very big car park. So it's at the same time quite stable. Yes, it's only a low single-digit percentage point, but if you remember of what the impact on the aftermarket was in any of the past crises, that was actually, in my humble opinion, the segment of the automotive industry which went down the least and which recovered the quickest at the same time. So yes, the upside is not utterly sexy compared to other elements, but at the same time, the downside is quite restricted. So this is, in my humble opinion, a very interesting and at the same time important area to be in. Why is it important to be in? Because also comparable to other elements of the automotive value chain, this is an area where good players should actually be doing EBIT margins of double digit. So if you are a supplier into the aftermarket, if you're a wholesaler, etc., your expectation, your ambition should be doing, depending on your subsegment, something between 10 and 30% of EBIT margin. And this is definitely something attractive. Even if the top line is not growing crazily, the EBIT with a, let's say, secure, steady point going forward is something you should be looking into. What is actually now driving the change when we compare now what is going on in the market between 2025 and the 2035? There are, of course, a couple of elements you have to consider on the positive and on the negative. And this also depends while we still all are learning about the technology. There are discussions about, okay, how negative is actually the effect of a battery electric vehicle having less moving parts, using less components, etc. There's always the discussion about, okay, but if I do have an electric vehicle which is not braking but recuperating energy, is it actually using the brakes or is it not using the brakes? So what is the business there? Fun fact, if we do look at the Netherlands, if we do look at Scandinavia, for example, they did not see the consumption of brakes going down because the oxidation of brakes not being used is at the same time very high, right? So you still have a turnover of brakes. And this is actually something quite interesting which we do see. Overall, we do have the expectation that the market between an ICE situation in 2025 and still different scenario in a market which is not entirely electric, but at least more electric than in the past, will still have be grown if you're able to tackle the different opportunities. If there's an evolution in your business and you're actually appreciating the changes, whether it's technology in the vehicles, being it software-defined vehicles or at least more sensors, being it, for example, electrification and other elements. One interesting aspect is the pain points, which are probably still the same pain points we have been talking about 5 years or 10 years or 20 years ago. If you now put yourselves into the shoes of an end customer, which ultimately is going into a workshop, in most of the cases, maybe not if you have a Ferrari or a Porsche or something going into the workshop, that might actually be a good experience. But if you take an average vehicle, I would bet that on average, the experience is pretty bad. And we all do know in the industry that the after sales actually sells the next new vehicle. We have a situation where actually there is a high degree of non-transparency when it comes to what are they actually doing, what am I paying for, and why am I paying this. It's super difficult to compare because I'm locked in. You have long waiting times and inefficiency, which is super true because if we do look at the current workshops, I do not have the exact numbers in Italy, but if I look in Germany, a normal workshop is running at a productivity of 80-something, 90-something percentage points. They are completely full. All of the young kids, they want to go study or play on the PlayStation. They do not want to work in the workshops, so they do not find new people. So you have long waiting times. So if you have a breakdown in your vehicle, it can take a couple of weeks to get fixed. You have a fragmented customer journey. It's truly painful if you have a situation to bring the vehicle to fixing, to paying, to get feedback, etc. All of those points is something where technology can help and where actually individual players along the value chain, along the supply chain, thanks to technology, can make a difference to their competition, right? We strongly believe at BCG that a lot of those elements on the top line, but also cost-wise on the bottom line, can be tackled by technology, can be tackled by AI. I'm going to show a couple of examples afterwards where we already do see a couple of selected car manufacturers going stronger into the direction of using technology, not just for new vehicles, but also for used vehicles, for the supply chain, for the customer journey. And we're strongly convinced that this is something which all of the different players along the value chain have to use. Just an example, I'm just now coming from a project together with an aftermarket wholesaler, and he's saying that if he manages from picking up his components in Shanghai, China, and bringing them to an individual workshop, for example, here in Modena, there's so many warehouses, there are so many parts, there are so many safety levels. If he can manage to decrease the net working capital by 5 or 10% because all the different stations are talking to each other, the interests, the financing costs of this net working capital will finance all of the necessary investments into technology and AI, right? Let me look a little bit where the value is and where we believe the value is coming from. What we do see is that there have been, and I'm going to talk about it, there have been very, very lots of let's say, speedboats and examples and proof of concepts in the early beginning, quote unquote, playing with AI. And it's only honest and true to recognize that not all of those were successful. Probably most of those were not successful. A lot of the early adopters going into AI, going into technology, probably spent some money, spent a lot of money, and then when you had to justify to the CFO, to the CEO, what is actually the return on that situation, nobody was happy. But this is part of the learning curve, how to actually also apply this efficiency. And we do see that actually the improvement of technology is on the one hand side getting much, much better. On the other hand side, also the way how companies apply AI and similar technology is also getting better. So they are getting much, much better to pick and choose where actually to use technology and where actually not to apply it, not because it's not interesting, but just because there's no business case. And to be honest, everybody of us is ultimately in the business of earning money. So you need a positive business case to go into it. We see a couple of elements, and I believe the document will also be shared afterwards, that if we do talk about sales tactics, so about pricing, discount control, also, let's say, distinguishing between different groups of customers. If we do talk about procurement, to just being able to do a fair procurement, price finding, this is definitely something where technology can be usefully applied. But at the same time, we also have to say that if we look at the entire automotive industry and we compare those, literally us, to other industries like banking, like insurance, like consumer goods, most of the other industries, while you can recognize they are more virtual, more digital, they have more transaction, etc., but despite that, we are lagging behind other industries. We are still very manual. How many of you that are doing pricing, for example, or discounting, or procurement negotiations, how many of you still do it in Excel versus specialized tools? This is not happening in most of modern banking or insurance or consumer goods anymore because it's just not possible due to the big amount of data. And the question is, where and how can you apply it vis-a-vis your competitors actually? And this is a duty of all of us to actually bring this up and, let's say, use all the opportunities where we can learn from other industries. We are not in automotive the early mover anymore. We have the ability to look at other industries and then copy what we believe works and what might not be working. One of those elements which we think is very exciting, why is that? Because there is a human interaction there with the end customer, whether it's B2B2C, whether it's B2C or whether it's B2B, but there is an interaction. There's lots of individual steps, there's lots of data, there's lots of different things if you sell parts to different cities in Italy, to different countries in Europe, different transactions. There's an opportunity where we believe you can play AI always when it comes to the customers, for example, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales. There's opportunities, and I'm not saying that you have to, also quote the colleague before me, I'm not talking about, hey, you have to do big consultancy projects. While I disagree, I would love still there to be consultancy projects and not killing all of those. But in all honesty, I'm not saying that you have to program AI yourselves. There is so many software already out there which you can easily apply. Not all of them is being able to be used in 20 minutes, but certainly in 20 days maybe, if you really go for some standard software and apply different pieces. We must not think that the basis for applying AI is a huge IT system. Application of AI is not the ERP introduction, right? As I said, also, it's quite interesting to look into even the innovation. For the past years, we have been talking about AI, simple AI. We now do talk about physical AI and agent AI. What is physical AI? Physical AI is, you would imagine, if you have a warehouse, if you have a factory, where literally as little as possible people are working in. Probably only maintenance people, and all the rest is being done automatically, whether it's a warehouse or whether it's a factory. Agent AI is where actually the AI system is not just responding to one human prompt and getting the information, but it's almost autonomously working, connecting different agents and truly jumping from one part of the supply chain to another, communicating to each other. And this is truly the direction this is now going. We have a situation of another automotive OEM in Germany where the board decided in each of the board meetings, there's a computer there with a screen and with a microphone. It's constantly listening in, and it has been programmed with all the formulas, replanning, demand planning, factory costs, let's say the demand planning across the footprint, and it's constantly giving feedback as if it was an additional person sitting in the room as an agent. There are a couple of examples. I'm not going in. Probably you know those examples, and you know even more examples. One interesting thing is, and this is actually quite easy to apply, is we all in our individual companies have probably so much information, and there is a saying about, and you can put it whether it's Fiat, whether it's Bosch, whether it's Siemens, like the typical saying, if we knew what we knew, we would be much more successful. Well, if you think about AI and bringing all of your documents into some system, or actually having the AI being able to access different things and just being able to ask questions. And the interesting thing is you do not have to have IT affinity or being a nerd or a tech guy. You can just speak a normal language. And this is the beauty of the things. You can just use it as if you would be talking to somebody to get the information out of the system. The same goes, for example, what we are also applying at BCG, that we are trying to resemble situations where actually we have an AI agent speaking to people. So imagine us having to do a due diligence in a situation where you would like to take over another company. And we have to do lots of market interviews. And in your cases, it could be end customers. You have by now the possibility of verbal AI agents calling somebody or actually being called, and you can literally talk to those guys. BCG has 30,000 people globally. When we do surveys internally, I call a hotline internally, somebody, the AI, speaks the questions to me, and we have a discussion. It's not a survey where I say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, but we truly have a discussion. And if I do not understand the question, I can say, I'm so sorry, I'm not getting the question. Could you please paraphrase? Because I'm from automotive industry, how would you ask the question? And it reacts to me. And this is amazing. I'm not saying it's 100% like talking to a human. And this should not be the benchmark. But it truly is helping in many, many different situations. And it's standard, almost standard software. This is not a multi-million software introduction. This is by using already available stuff in the market. What did I say in the very beginning? And with this I'm ending. But what I would say is that when AI and technology in the automotive industry about the supply chain started a few years ago, because when it comes to AI, we do talk about an evolution every couple of months, not years or decades. When we did start 1, 2, 3 years ago, a lot of people had an illusion that now many, many things would be changing. And they had Gen AI and they tried a couple of things. And as I did say, in the end, they were actually not happy. It was super cool to test it and everybody spoke about it, but you did not become more profitable or more efficient. And this is truly something which we have to consider in what we do see. If you do an AI introduction, and this is why I try to quote Pagani in the very beginning, where I did say it's not replacing, but it always has to help the people. If we do an application of AI in your companies, most of it is actually taking the people with you. So the success of an AI project depends 70% on the people actually embracing it, adopting it, where again the CEO has to lead by example. 70% is actually coming from the people, 10% is actually technology, 20% is actually then trying to bring here. And only then, in those situations, you can actually create value, which ultimately is necessary to establish AI in your companies along the entire supply chain. With this, thank you so much for your attention, and handing over to the next agenda point.
Thank you, Alexander. It's been an interesting presentation.
Let's start now with our next interviews. Actually, we have now a roundtable, and we will have the chance of talking to the various representatives of the Italian value chain. So, Marco Bonometti is here with me. A big hand for him, please. Thank you very much. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Officine Meccaniche. Then Marco Gai, Executive President of DEF and of the Union of Industrialists in Turin, ANFIA President Marco Stella for spare parts, and Sebastiano Rio, Marco Rio, the speaker corrects himself. He's Marco Rio. Yeah, it's a very trendy name to be called Marco, right? So the first question to you all is a strategic one. What about Ferrari Luce? What can you tell us about this new style that has been launched? Mr. Bonamonti, do you love it? Do you like it? Give us your remarks, your observations. This morning, Barisoni, he doesn't understand anything of factories. Why do you say that he doesn't understand anything, Mr. Barisoni? You know, he is a part of our industrialist union. He has attended the meetings and chaired the assemblies, but he needs to be more, too down to earth. He's too cavalier. So it's an electric car. Let's get down to earth. It gives plenty of jobs to suppliers, to vendors. What else can I say? It's my decision whether I'll buy it or not. I'm not here to tell you. Well, let's have a survey. Let me just add to the automotive data and spare parts data. In the spare parts, we invest 83 million in R&D and has 400 million paid in taxes. So beyond employing 13 million or such, and if we add the spin-offs, we have a strategic sector. So that's where we should start from factories. If we close factories, these people will no longer be here selling services or AI. You can't make a car with AI. You can exploit it, leverage it, use AI, but factories are made of technology, innovation, and labor and ongoing research. So since I cover 5 continents, 50% of my revenues comes from abroad and 50 from Italy. I'm European, I'm Italian, and I cover all of the world. Let me guarantee that our technicians, our laborers and workers are the most competent. So let's not be disappointed. In Europe, the factories work because every day workers, women and men, go there and work in factories. Then, if the background we work in is failing, it's not our fault. We nonetheless look forward. Electrification will not be the solution, but just one of the many solutions. Here, they have focused more on ideologies. The Green Deal was not successful. The Green Deal was a failure. We keep speaking of reducing CO2. Do you know what mobility contributes to in Europe for emissions? 1%. We have 250 million cars driven that are more than 15 years old. Were we to replace them, we would solve the problem. So we are committed to solving the problem, but someone should also set the conditions forth so as to allow European factories to be competitive. China, US on the two sides. You have set custom duties from China imports, and Euro 6 has been very successful, and we are eliminating it, phasing it out. In Brazil, the economy is increasing by 40% per year. What are we talking about? Come on. Do we want to compete with China? Do you know how much they cost in China? 8 million per year. Energy is cheaper. Technologically, they are ahead 20 years if compared to us because the state invested in technology. So what can we do? We cannot, do much more than we are doing. But I'm proud that I have hired around 100, 150 employees in Italy. Why? Because we are trying to create, design products that are more performing, more in line in terms of sustainability. But be careful there. the technological transition was started by Italy years and years ago. There are not many factories that look better than the Italian was. But what about the European Union? They haven't decided anything else. No, in fact, nothing has changed. We need a political decision. Field for 55 should be removed, eliminate sanction, remodulate CO2 emissions, because by 2035 we'll never be able to achieve that goal. But let me speak clearly to my colleagues. We have to be strong, and we have to go hand in hand with the Germans, because Italians or else don't count. But since we are the second manufacturing power in Europe and seventh worldwide, we should make our voice heard. Let's stop analyzing, diagnosing. Nobody gets beyond that point where decisions must be made. Well, it's clear that there is no political will to change, so people have to decide and understand that if factories close, people will go sleep under bridges. So your final conclusion is that factories will close. In Germany, they have cut 300,000 employments, and there will be a further 500,000 that will be lost in the near future. What if the Chinese come to Italy? Is this a pro or a con? Well, here again, let's copy from other countries. Let's set quotas. Europe is looking for solutions. Look at the US. Look at Brazil. You should, in Italy, manufacture products that are made 80% in Italy, in your own country, or else you pay sanctions. We pay sanctions, and those sanctions fund Chinese manufacturers. That's how brilliant we are. We're not smart at all. So this is why Italian industrialists should unite with the Germans and protest. Because as my friend Marco Gai says, is that we do not have a lot of power in terms of representing votes. You would be in favor of a protest like farmers, for example, an organized protest. I told my friends, all of my buses are made available, and I'll ask my people to go to Brussels. Yes, we'll drive to Brussels, or else in 5 years' time we'll still be talking about these topics all over again. So please, let's raise our voices, or else they won't listen to us, and we will have to phase out our manufacturing in Europe. Marco was nodding his head. He was willing to pay for that. He says he makes the buses available. Well, just this morning, ACEA, the lightweight vehicle manufacturers, sent out a letter to the Commission to ask for a change and a debate on a set of problems. However, beyond the automotive sector, that is a symbol more or less, but decision making is required. We have to negotiate compromises amongst the different European countries that had different political powers, and we lose sight of what we really need. The wealth has been lost here in our sector. We should also say that regulations have been proposed. One at the Parliament will be opened on the CO2 file that finally opens a set of amendments that could also allow for other technologies, not only the electrical technology. But they are so slow-paced. This rhythm is not acceptable in order to find solutions for the highly complex background scenario we're working in. And no comparisons to compare with the US and China on the other side. They're so fast-paced, and they have scheduled their role and programming as to become the first industrial power. Don't you have the feeling that in Europe, on the one hand, they are, more favorable, and on the other hand, they become more severe? So 100% dogma fell. We got to 80, but then immediately after, by the end of 2026, we will pass a new regulation for company fleets, which represents 50% of the market share. So on the one hand, they give you, the carrot, and on the other hand, they pull your tail and beat you up. Well, let me say that some of us who are a little older were used to the rhythms and rites and rituals of many parties at power. And now the bipartisan politics is faring far worse. So everybody speaks about these things. It's, a big hype. And then you get not 90%, but 10% freedom only starting from 2035. I see my colleagues from Resul here. How can you invest on my refuel or alternative fuels if they tell you that maybe by 2035 you will be able to use a part of it on what you register, but only if you have green steel or, absurd features. So this is why we are frustrated, as Marco Bonometti just said with his clear-spoken words. We have reached a point where we have to clarify where the problem is the automotive sector. If it's a problem, okay, we've understood. We won't surrender. We will protest. But if we keep telling and giving products, this is the product you will need to buy, and they don't want it, then the aftermarket flourishes, and the age of driven vehicles has grown. So 13-year-old vehicles are driven on the roads. In the end, drops in the market. Let's talk about the Shanghai exhibition, automotive exhibition. In Europe, we've canceled them all. They're useless. We no longer have that type of budget. It's not the right way of selling cars. But what about the Germans? How much did they invest in the Shanghai exhibition, automotive exhibition? They never spent so much, not even in Frankfurt. Pagani exhibited at CES. I am small as an automotive industrialist, and having gifted away our most important showcase exhibition to those who manufacture electronics, well it was a present to them. So we did not maintain our exhibitions, our showrooms. They were gifted to them so that they can showcase their product. So the regulatory sector has gone mad. This morning at the theater, we spoke of innovation. Yes, the innovation has dropped. If you talk to the C-suites, C-levels of multinationals operating in Europe, the only job they do is that of mainly looking at regulations, at laws, talking to lobbyists in Brussels. So the typical desire of the Motor Valley people wanting to manufacture things well, creatively, so as to go drive on the piste, on the ring, and enjoy, get the thrill out of it, What happened to that? Where did that desire of enjoying freedom when driving? Let me just add something else, Marco. It wasn't just the slow pace in making decision. It's just that there is a lack of ideas, a lack of strategies. I am European. Without Europe, we can't survive. If we don't network in Europe, we go nowhere. But if we do not have a strategy, we can't implement one. So the only thing we're doing is designing new laws. We have also regulated the pruning of olive trees in terms of centimeters. Come on, let's stop doing that. So if you pass just regulations, you remain embalmed in them. You become a mummy. The main point is that we're lacking ideas and strategies. To you, Marco Gai. I'm plenty in line with the vision that was presented both by those who offer the buses, those who will drive the buses and invite the people to ride on them. But the main key problem in the automotive sector, which is really tangible, we can really feel it, is that, Europe grew and developed thanks to the automotive sector. But Europe is not giving attention to any industrial sector. However, let me say that I do not agree 100%. It's not that we switch on the TV set and we see Europe. We have sent to Europe all those politicians that we don't want in Italy, and we've sent them out to Europe. That's what has happened. And now, finally, we realize that I come from a territory that doesn't need to boast my capabilities. I am a good industrialist. I don't want to do that. I am a good innovator. I know how to use the novel technological tools like AI and future developments allow me. But I am a reformer in this continent, and so I should be allowed to raise my hand, and I like to say that Italy, Germany, Poland, all the hawks, stop voting the P&L, the balance sheet, the budget, because not everybody is in favor of the Green Deal by 2035. And then when we have the horrible situation exploding, the bomb explodes, and we're not ready. And now you give the fault to the bureaucrats sitting in Brussels. So, to close, the Italian industrial policies, starting from the territory, trying to understand how to extract added value between products and services is key. Then, secondly, we should, make our voice felt as continent. We can't look at others and see what they're doing, things that are extraordinary. The Chinese have been so great right now, so successful that for 10 years they've only invested on energy. What do we do with our energy investment? We make cars with endothermal and with electrification. They have become great with batteries, cells. They've been great. They've invested there. We can say, okay, we've lost the automotive, we've lost this, that, and that. They're great, but they will suffer the warmer weather more than we will. Let me just pitch in to say another key aspect. It's not only the politicians' fault, because the people we send to Brussels are voted by citizens, not parties. And so the Europeans are responsible. So the left-wing parties were against factories. We have to speak out, speak up. European citizens have chosen this path. Well, they have to take responsibility for that. So let's debunk what is known. They have always declared we're against factories in Europe. Green Deal proposals offered the possibility of opening better jobs, but instead they went and chose the ideology. We were told that by 2030 we would need to have clean energy, and so in time, in the industry was ready. So we were told lies. We are now fearing this situation because we were told that this was going to happen. It had been decided, the public opinion, they are all informed on the fact that the factories pollute. But instead, I mean, I am enjoying when I go to China the fact that I'm Italian, because their working conditions, let's not speak about that. And then they also have 40, 50, 60 coal power plants. So come on. When I went to China, warehouse, 150,000 square meters, and then a city was born all around it. And then the latest years, when I went there, I was told if you want to move the plant, you move to another piece of land. I said, okay, give me the keys. I'm going to put a bomb here and leave you just with a crater in the ground. In the US, there was Trump, and I was told, go to the US. And I went to Indiana, and in 10 minutes I was told, what do you need? I'm not a real estate person. I'm a technologist. I'm an industrials. They gave me 20,000 square meters. The factory was built as I presented according to my layout, and it cost me $1. So this is the real thing. We should expect to be competitive, and we do that by investing in R&D and doing all the innovations and setting it forth. But it's not up to us to change laws, like the other mandatory aspect of a city car that has to have the lane assist. So I told Filosa, thank you, because at least he's trying to change the course. And I can say that we have seen some first results. The light weight vehicles are doing very well, the Ducato. So clearly enough, you cannot change rules. If you are told that we have to electrify by 2030, well, aren't we in democracy? Can we choose a technology, the fuels that we want to use to drive our cars? I mean, we all agree we want sustainability, want to protect the planet, but if they do not decide on the short term, it's going to be lost. They keep, to postpone a decision. Yes, also the Industrial Accelerator Act. Let's speak of that. What is the industry asking for is for a competitive plan. But what do we need in terms of a competitive plan in Europe? I believe it is logic to demand, to expect and protect a European share of the market, and they're taking it from us with very high quality product, let me add. And by the way, let me also add that the majority of registered Chinese products or cars have an ICE engine, an internal combustion engine. Well, there is a misinterpretation. the Chinese and the US want to have a good market, a good business, not how the market is set up. Yeah, because we open the doors of the market to them, also offering the incentives on electric cars, on BEV cars. The 80% of tax relief on BEV cars ended up in Chinese manufacturers' hands. So all this to state that this topic of competitiveness will be tackled and needs to be faced with powerful tools that appear in a timely manner. If you ask European manufacturers to participate to the competitor race with the tools they have, well, we are exporting huge parts of our supply and value chain towards China or other countries, for example, even the Maghreb countries. So we should be allowed to have a tool that will stop the hemorrhage in this critical moment in time, because I'm convinced that those who reject the aspect and say that industries have to be competitive and Bonometti's enterprise, if he increases the headcount, means that he is competitive, remain competitive when they are outside of their territory. Only at home they have to go uphill in order to score a goal. So this is something that needs to be settled. And the EU, we speak about the EU, that's where the problem lies, because we haven't become aware of an aspect. I'm so sorry to turn supply chain aspects into political ones, but it's the reality. We do have a key political problem that was set forth decades ago in Europe. We've stopped having a long-term strategy that goes beyond the founding fathers of the European Union. And so we have transformed the initial idea of the EU, and it has remained just the way in which the member countries manage their own backyard. And so I want to expect a stronger, more powerful Europe than the one we have right now. If we see present Europe acts as a referee, and it's useless. If we attend a football match, two teams fight one against the other, and one wins, the other loses, but the referee never, ever wins. And so the only thing that the European bureaucracy can do is regulate with the bureaucracy. When we set up the common market, we thought that we were not going to cheat one another, because we saw that you sold your apples, they were bigger than mine, so we need a European standard so as to have apples that are the same everywhere, without considering the rest of the world. So that's where we need a different Europe. When you see that the first title of the Commissioner Saint-Germain is for the internal market. So this gives you the job position that he has, shows the ambition that they have. The Chinese, the Americans were able to scale all the value chains, whilst we just looked at the internal market, and that was it.
Please put your hands together for our panelists. We can vote you, we can elect you to defend the interest of Italian automotive sector. Yes, I will go to Europe with the bus paid by the previous speaker. Today, this year at the Motor Valley Fest in the main square, we have we have a vehicle. I don't know how to pronounce the name of the vehicle, and CPC provides the structure and the body. This is a tangible example of the way Italian competencies and skills can be applied to vehicles of the future. Yes, in fact, after providing you with quite a gloomy scenario for Europe, I would like to see the bright side. The bright side is that we always have a solution. It is a difficult solution. We need to battle. We need to fight. When I presented Zux, I thought that it was a small answer, but it's still a good answer we can provide if we work together. The great initial challenge was to persuade, to convince a global player to come to Modena, to join us in Modena, and to find good skills and good competencies here. And also inviting this great player to Modena so that he could find a great ecosystem in which, by putting together Italian competencies, Italian skills, together with Bolometti, together with Marco, we are creating elements, some parts of these Zux. We have developed it together with an engineering study in Italy to show how good we are. I think that if we walk alone, we will never reach any success. The important thing is having a plan, having a strategy. We need to abide by that strategy. We need to leave aside the national and individual interest. We should rather use a winning system like Zux. We have shared the Zux project in Motor Valley here in Modena. I would like to thank Marco for his components. I would like to thank ourselves for our job, and I would like to thank all the passion we have proved. I would like to thank all the young boys and girls who want to innovate. We are innovate a big deal, and by working with the universities, we managed to have a piece of Silicon Valley in the Motor Valley. So, Marco Gai, this morning at the Teatro Storchi, we have been talking a lot about technology, understood as AI, digitalization. Is this a field in which Made in Italy can recover some ground, some terrain we have lost? I do not only believe that we can recover, that we can improve, but I think that there are many untold things, unexpressed things. Before I listened to the presentation about AI, data, algorithm, and all these things have an extraordinary impact on the whole business and the whole industry. But I think that there are three requirements here because we need to recover at an Italian level and at a European level. The first thing is that we need to understand technology as a real industry. So I would like to abandon the fashion business logic, because if you think about AI, agentic AI, robotics, and so on and so forth, you realize that the first game with the LLM models, well, we have lost that game. We will lose that game. But if you bear in mind robotics, if you bear in mind agentic AI and the new manufacturing of AI with added values in the company, for example, when it comes to robotics, which means the construction of the mechanical things, who better than an industrialist, an industrial man or woman can do this? In fact, this morning we appreciated an example of an Italian business that is investing in this segment, and they are the only one in Europe. Secondly, we need to talk about money. Frankly, I'm going to be very, very tangible here, but how do you think that you can compete with those who invest billions and billions? They need financial leverage. We are a small country, on the other hand. We have millions and billions of private savings. So maybe we can use these financial leverage so that people can invest in businesses. But then they're worried about the tax revenues. So again, this means that we lack strategy here. We are lacking strategies. People do not do not know that by investing one year after another, they could contribute to hundreds of thousands of jobs. I'm doing so. I'm talking about 1,200 families. I'm contributing to the life of 1,200 families. And if everybody does like me, we can be in a very good situation. And the third thing is that we need to stop regulating too much. I always mention the fact that here in Italy we have blocked ChatGPT. In Italy, nobody could use ChatGPT. Only in Europe, okay? The only country in Europe. But unfortunately, ChatGPT was still running on all the website using it. So we lost money, we lost investors, and especially if you make investments and if you make innovation easier, then you are allowing people, you are allowing professionals to take advantage of it. But you can do so only if you have an industrial policy which lasts at least 5 years. We need to know what are the rules of the game. If we have rules of the game, if those rules are clear, we know then how to behave, we know how to do our job in the best possible way. Okay, we are about to conclude this panel. I still have a couple of questions, one to Marco Stella and the last one to Mr. Bonometti. Marco Gai has introduced the topic of access to capital, access to credit. What is the priority among access to capital, skills, and industrial policy in order to defend Made in Italy? Would you say the three of them? Well, no doubt I would say industrial policies. Because I am 100% sure that we are now embarking upon a journey, and this journey is compromising our manufacturing system much more than in the automotive sector. I would like to stress that we can talk about sovereignty, we can talk about defense, we can talk about whatever we want, but then we forget that a strong automotive industry is the first asset every country would like to have, would like to count on with any need, before any need. For example, the possible need of transforming, of converting the whole industries in war industries. So an industrial politics that cannot be focused on a European scale. I don't know if you, yeah, Marco mentioned before. Marco mentioned before that if we take Italian GDP, I am the president of components manufacturers. We are not that good at, from the point of view of vehicles, from a manufacturing point of view. We are excellent when it comes to Motor Valley, but we are also the second great power in Europe from the point of view of components. And if you are active in the automotive business, you realize that being the second components manufacturer with these standings in Europe, this means that we have very good products. And I would like to conclude by saying that from my point of view, this industrial policy has to be launched not only to safeguard automotive sector, but the whole industrial sectors. Otherwise, we would be access an unknown land of deindustrialization. And if we end up there, well, we can talk about AI every day. We can talk about the winter of natality rate and so on, but we will never know what creating jobs means. Mr. Bonometti, please give us the final remarks. What time does the bus leave to Brussels? Well, actually, we are good to go. We are good to leave. You said that there are so many Chinese manufacturers who are showing interest for some production sites. Casino is involved in this. BYD wants to manufacture here. But what if these Chinese actors bring here their own supply chain? If obviously here Europeans are so smart that they can let these Chinese players access, or either they will access from Turkey. But we need to set tariffs for components for the automotive sector in Italy. Do you think it is logic that I have to pay the 25% to export to China? So now, if things are like that, I will do the same as Trump. I will do what Trump is doing, because we need to be consistent here. So either we set tariffs. I I gave the example of United States, and Brazil is doing the same, as if tariffs were the solution. So from Brazil, we will receive cheaper products because they do not have our same rules there in Brazil. The main thing I'm saying is the single price on energy. I would cancel it. And regarding Italy, and I mentioned this more than once, the problem is not the nuclear power. Nuclear power will take 10 years. The problem is credit. So if you want credit, well, will you get money from? From companies managing energy. At the beginning, they all asked for the state subsidies. Now they need to give proof of their profit, as it was done with banks. With banks, we had to pay the costs of for the whole system. So now we need people, we need politicians to make decisions. Do you remember when, with that minister, we have developed an energy plan for years and years, and we solved nothing? Well, let's try to reactivate, to relaunch the Eni platforms. In Basilicata region in southern Italy, we have oil. When my friend says that we needed to relaunch concessions, why don't we have these concessions? Because we have environmentalists who are annoying us a lot. So we need to be brave enough to make decisions. Okay, this being said, we can close this panel. Everybody is staring at us, maybe because we are a bit late. Thank you so much. Let's continue with the following speech by Deloitte. We have Carmine Fiorilli and Stefano Buschi on the stage now. So, Mr. Fiorilli is from the supply chain of network operation, technology and transformation, automotive and sector leader. This is the longest job description I've ever read. On the other hand, Stefano Buschi is from Deloitte. He is a partner in Northern and Southern Europe, cyber growth, cyber risk, and crisis resilience. Yes, our job descriptions are so long. I know that. Sorry about that. Is this working? Yep. I must say that taking the floor after this roundtable is like playing instruments on a stage after Rolling Stones. So it will be difficult. I do not have the pointer and the clicker, so let's see if someone can give me that. So as Carmine said, this will be a hard task because the previous panel was an explosive one. So we would like to talk about the supply chain development from different standpoints. For example, the one related to development, efficiency, but also we want to focus on risks, supply chain, and especially cybersecurity. So Carmine, the floor goes to you. The microphone is not working, I'm sorry. We cannot translate until the mic works. Okay, in these 10 minutes ahead of us, we will be delighted of sharing with you some reflections regarding the future of supply chain, especially the luxury and performance segment in the automotive sector. We will start with some data and information we have extracted from a recent report by Deloitte, and we will go through together some reasoning, some reflections, and some observations regarding this field. Let's start from some figures, and let's keep a time frame of 4 years from now to 2030. What are these figures telling us? Well, the global automotive sector in the next 4 years will moderately grow in a shy way. Inside this market, the luxury and performance segment will actually grow a bit more, with more acceleration, from 5 to 7% year over year. Inside the luxury and performance segment, the broad family of electric vehicles will grow even more, with a CAGR, which is the double of luxury and performance. And we will have a positive contribution of all the digital services related to the vehicle. These digital services will determine an 8 to 10% growth year over year. When we talk about luxury and performance, we make reference to a market that is developing. It will still develop in the future. It will not grow at a double-digit pace, but it will still grow thanks to the contribution of technology, which will add value to this growth. Yet, this market is based on complexities. Actually, it depends on some complexity. And the complexity, as it was said in previous speeches, impact a lot in the supply chain. Now, there are so many variables inside this complexity, and we have identified 3 of them. They are the ones we are showing in this slide. We will delve into them one by one. For each of them, we have identified some aspects you probably already know. And regarding these aspects, we have provided a possible evolution until 2030. Let's start from the first one, the evolution of powertrain. First thing first, the coexistence of supply chains related to the ICE and the electric vehicles will keep on working in the next 4 years, and this will produce some difficulties in the management of differentiated supply chains. Due to this, we will have a reduction in the used capacity of industrial assets by 30% until 2030. After that, we need to focus on the dependence on the provision of battery packs. So the battery packs supply will keep on being there in the next 4 years, and this will question all the purchasing models. The same goes for some materials. For some material categories of direct materials related to the production of lithium battery packs, price volatility, price ups and downs will be a crucial element until 2030. This will impact on purchasing processes. Software-defined vehicles. We have a range of implications related to this area in the supply chain. So the dependence on semiconductors and the supplying times will always be long. This timing will not be reduced. Regarding the lack of strategic raw materials like rare lands, well, when we have scarcity, we have a problem related to the supply, especially when it comes to China. This lack and concentration, on the other hand, will create more volatility, higher volatility of price. And we also have the whole theme related to complexity when it comes to software development. So we will not only talk about data security and data privacy, we will also need to increase the capacity of each business. And we have the R55 and 56 regulation. They require all the OEMs to develop these capabilities and spread them out all over the chain, the supply chain. Complexity, IT complexity is giant, is enormous. It's multiplied by 5 compared to last year. We have different complexities when it comes to Gen AI regarding possible hackers. It requires a high degree of exploitability, which is much higher than the analysis we have carried out. Now, geopolitical pressure. We have different issues here. For example, the visibility of the supply chain. As we are under pressure, as we have political pressure, it is very important that we are visible on the whole supply chain. Average speaking, today an automotive supply chain is able to forecast the first or the second level of the supply chain in a chain that actually is larger. It extends to the 4th or to the 5th level. So companies will be working in order to create this higher visibility. And this visibility becomes even more important in order to make strategies, reshoring strategies, regionalization strategies more efficient. And these are ongoing strategies, and they will keep improving in the next 4 years. And the last point is that we will still have a high pressure on margins, not only when it comes to price volatility for strategic raw materials, the ones we mentioned before, but also related to the increase in costs among categories like logistic costs. These costs will be higher, will tend to increase. These are all complex elements, and all the stakeholders in the sector know these elements very well. Now, what are companies doing? What are the levers they are using? These levers will actually represent the supply chain of the next few years. Companies are acting differently using smart AI and automation, strategic partnerships. The companies are working in order to increase the visibility across the whole supply chain, nearshoring and offshoring strategies, planning methods, and advanced forecasting methods. On top of that, we have the cybersecurity part and testing part, which needs to be integrated and embedded in the software development. If you cannot have an effective and efficient testing capacity, you will never type approve the vehicle. You will never do the type approval of the vehicle. This is essential for OEM because it is spread out over the whole supply chain, and these supply chains do not have the ability to face these issues on their own. This is why Motor Valley needs to act as a team, because infrastructure is a cost, and this is a relevant cost for everybody. These are all efficient leverages which help us face the challenges we have listed before. Not only those challenges, but also other problems. Are all these leverages enough? Do we need to use something else? We are in front of a supply chain that needs to serve a market that will develop, with the electric vehicle segment that will develop even more. A whole range of the digital services applied to vehicles will be a further actor, a further player in this growth. So this is a high degree of complexity, and companies are investing a lot of money in order to forecast in a better way, in a wiser way, in order to know what will go on with plans. In such a complex scenario, making these efforts when it comes to forecasting it is very difficult, and sometimes is also useless. We are expecting future supply chains to be more agile, leaner supply chains that are able to manage daily all the processes and all the problems of supply chain. In order to be agile in a complex scenario, you need two things: data on one hand, and on the other hand, decisions. So we need to have the chance to decide, to make decisions in an efficient way, in an informed way, and also in a correct way, being aware of everything. Do you know what this number represents? 35,000 is the average number of decisions a human being makes every day. So you easily understand that in our supply chains, people who work in processes, well, if these people are able to decide wisely with the right timing and with the right promptness, well, then we will be able to create a competitive system. This is why the future supply chain in the automotive sector, on top of having all the characteristics it has, also has another characteristic, which is the adoption of decision intelligence models. These models are based on data. They are strengthened by generative AI, and these models give us the chance to automate, to strengthen, or just to support decisions made by our people every day. These models are based on 4 elements. Sense early, I get all the data in the supply chain, demand, production production efficiency, service, quality, real quality, and so forth, and so on and so forth. And I can connect all these elements together. Simulate options. This is another thing. with these models, we do what-if simulations with a very, very high speed. What happens, for example, if my supplier is late, or what happens if the supplier has delivered a material that is not in line with the quality standards? What happens? What if I have an out of stock in some materials? What if the machine has a longer downtime than expected? And then the select and prioritize model. All these models develop and prioritize and select decisions according to the business targets we determine. So they can prioritize decisions in order to maximize the turnover, in order to maximize the profit, the margin, or the service level, or to maximize quality, or to maximize a combination of these things I've just said. Execute and learn are models that make the decisions we propose, and in an automatic or semi-automatic way, they push decisions inside our systems, making them operational.
So all of these are multi-capability models, and they have capabilities, as you see on the left, the legacy ones, traditional ones, linked to recovering data, monitoring, alerts, etc. But especially new capabilities are introduced, as you can see on your right-hand side. They offer decision recommendations that can become immediately operational. And how does a human being interact with all of these decision-making tools? There are three different categories. Human out of the loop. What do we mean here? In this box, we place standard decisions. Well-informed, no human time necessary. Human on the loop. These are the exceptions, the anomalies of our processes. And this is where the model is going to support the human being, the engineer, the process technician, etc., to make the best and most proper decision. Human in the loop, no models, decisions offered by the model. There are a set of possible decisions offered to the human being, and the human being will make the decision. Now, to close, we expect that the future supply chain using these complex contexts will leverage automation, planning, scheduling capabilities. But those are levers that extract efficiency in foreseeable worlds. And so we expect to have other models of decision intelligence to be used when the human being is not able to make the decisions. This is what we expect for the future. Thank you. Very well. Thank you very much for your precious presentation. So let me add another stool so that you can sit here on stage and invite a number of panelists for the next roundtable. So we have manufacturers for components, engines, and energy. Let me invite Lucio Del Bello to the stage, representing Bosch Sense Innovation Manager in Italy. Luca Galantini, Senior Manager of Pirelli. Luca Galantina is the name. Andrea Ramonda, Hera Ambiente Group CEO, and Davide Uracchi, Sales Manager of DSV. I'll sit here, or else it would be like watching a tennis match and turning my head here to the left and to the right. So let's understand the value balance. Lucio Del Bello. Let's understand about the Bosch value engineering aspect. Thank you very much for inviting me. Well, we are working for Bosch in the mobility sector. And Bosch Engineering offers engineering services for Bosch products offered to supersport, luxury, or other niches like the marine sector. But we also offer consultancies for industrial companies. So our portfolio is pretty broad-ranging, not only on the automotive sector. For decades, automotive was guided by the OEMs and then transferred onto the supply chain. Now, with electronics becoming more and more important, the balance is moving more on the manufacturers of high level component manufacturers. So we are involved in innovation, and what I see with our customers, not only in Europe but worldwide, there is no longer the supplier or the customer that expect innovation. We work together so as to cooperate together. The supplier shares the know-how of components, parts, and the OEM who offers the vision to the brand, to the customers, offering and explaining what the DNA represents. So together they decide what we can work out together. So business solutions for both sides. So let me ask the same question also to our friend from Pirelli. The efficiency of the supply chain was set up by chasing globalization and cost. Now we speak more of resilience, proximity, digitization. The balance here is changing also on this field, don't you think? Well, Pirelli always had a global strategy with the local maximization, so to manufacture where it's more profitable. We have 18 factories worldwide, but 86% of our products are manufactured in the region where the products are sold. And this with the goal, of course, for cost reduction, because duties, transportation costs, and quickness in replying and meeting needs of customers come into the picture. Now, of course, the geopolitical scenario we have to deal with requires for us to focus on more and more resilient supply chains. And I really do share what our friends from Deloitte just told us. So we are, in fact, enjoying both an organizational and digital change. This is what we are experiencing. So end-to-end, from sourcing of raw materials to the planning of manufacturing of networks, customer experiences. So we have an end-to-end complete line, so different hats on our heads so that we can plan ahead. However, digitization in this field, and by the way, let me say that speed is a key. Even if, you cannot forecast many things. You cannot imagine a ship doing the wrong maneuvers and blocking the Suez Canal or COVID occurring. So plenty of disruptions may occur without us being able to forecast them ahead. However, let me say that we have to invest in order to be intercepting what may happen and have measures at hand to find a plan B. And this is what Pirelli is investing on: digitization with AI support and with the process organization as well. So 10,500 headcount for Herambiente. 7.5 million people have a service offered by the group. Is that right? Yes, absolutely. Hera is well known for public services and regulations. So we have been invited, even if we represent the public administration. As Herambiente, we have developed our activity on the management of waste disposed of by companies working on the territory. Our headquarter is in Bologna, but we have many other plants around Italy. The Pirelli representative was speaking of investment on new plants following the new European regulations for the plants that will recycle waste from plants and transform them into new products. With a company of ours, we transform polymers and transform these waste, the polymers in the waste, into special layers that are used by Pirelli in their productive process. For example, they use this type of material. In Europe, 6.5 million are phased out per year, and these become 6,700,000 tons. And this part of waste can be transformed. So 6 tons of plastics have to be disposed, recovered thermally, and we also recover plastic chemically and mechanically and regenerate and recycle the waste. So the previous debate was quite bright and vibrant in terms of energy topics, also because of the decisions made by the European Union. Now, last December, the 3 main chiefs of the European Union set forth new regulations for the way in which cars will be manufactured. And I do refer to the limits, namely that by 2032 they will have to have at least 50% of recycled material, and 2036 25%. And this is a new activity, a new job. You have to look for the waste that can be properly be recycled. And so if you have a glass cullet material, plastic, etc., that you may recover and look for these materials that may be recycled, it's a hard job because plastic waste have different features, and in order to understand how to recycle them, you have to assess them first, and that's a very, very complicated procedure. However, the European Union has set this forth. So what can we do? We take the buses, drive to Brussels and protest, or we move towards a new industrial sector that is a circular economy, where we can close a cycle, and we have the ambition and even the skills and competences to be part of that circular economy that will be able to give back part of those materials that are scarce, especially in Italy and Europe. We've spoken of plastic, but the automotive sector uses around 20% of steel in Europe. 10% of plastic and other material. Many are noble materials, and I refer to copper and other rare precious materials. So the more complexity there is in manufacturing cars, and the more we need to use critical raw materials that are scarce in Europe and Italy, and we have to import from abroad. We had Stefano here with us, who is chief of Mitsubishi, and they manufacture carbon fiber, which is very in high demand in luxury cars. And so we have to start thinking about how to regenerate that material. And this is what we are trying to do for lithium. It is going to be more and more used, and lithium batteries will need to be disposed or regenerated or sent abroad. Okay, now let's speak of logistics. DSV is part of Pirelli, right? Now, logistics is again undergoing change. And by the way, as an example of the change that you are undergoing, you have the proximity project, because it is here in Fiorano that you have a logistic hub which allows all the Ferrari suppliers to be closer one to the other, right? Yes, that's true, and it's wonderful to be here in the heart of the Motor Valley, which is a territory that we feel very close to our heart. It's dear to us. Those who know us, well, I guide and chair the most important logistic hubs here in Italy, but it is the most important one in the world. I have talked to many partners here that already collaborate with us. When people who meet me ask me, what do you do? I say, I work in logistics. Oh, transportations, warehouses. Well, much more than that. It's not just that logistics. Logistics means that we stock products and distribute products from A to B. In the last few years in Italy, but in general, worldwide, we have seen a very deep change, a transformation. We were the first to acknowledge that our partners, I don't like to call them clients or customers, but partners, because this shows the level of intimacy that we have when working together. And so together, we designed their new logistic footprint, their logistic layout, because when you explain what logistics mean, I refer to two examples. One was the pandemic. Even my kids understood that if goods were not supplied to supermarkets by lorries and trucks, well, there was going to be a lack of foodstuff. And then another global example, the Evergreen ship blocking the Suez Canal managed to stop all the supply chain exchange. And so we had to redesign our footprint. We had to accompany the strategic choices of our partners in redefining the global model. Amongst the examples that were quoted earlier, we had been in talks with the Ferrara manufacturers. They manufacture bumpers. And he said, oh, I have a huge issue in sending out 10 trucks a day. I want to set up a model that I only send out 4 trucks. So if you go to a baker who sells instead of 10 loaves of bread and then wants to shift to 3 small paninis, well, it was not an enthusiastic situation that we were to face. What happened? We set up a proximity hub, which was built on a brownfield, so respecting the idea of regeneration, and close to Maranello, so one of the main final customers. So we set up a fine hub that allows the suppliers of our customers to be hosted there. They also manufacture there, there. And in our hubs, they set up productive subsidiaries where they manufacture exactly the same product that they made in their own plant. Instead of making it 300, 400 kilometers away, they manufacture there 20 meters away with a faster pace, greener way of managing everything. Less mobility, less trucks on the road. And in case of unpredictable events, we can react rapidly. In the last months, by the way, speaking of flexibility, when I travel the world because of the needs of my customers, the word I heard more and more often is the word flexibility. Flexibility in undersigning agreements, in new layouts, new projects. So the word that was most used was flexibility. So the emergencies that may come up unexpectedly all around the world require thinking out of the box. So no closed environments, no silos, but a way in which we can be flexible. We should not be rigid. And we are called to do that not as a pure execution companies, but as an integrated company that is invited to make the strategic decisions together with our partners. And this is what we've done with Maranello in the proximity hub that now hosts 6 suppliers, not only of Ferrari, but of other OEMs of the territory. And we've done this with a lot of, sense of accountability and responsibility in terms of helping the territory. Now, DSV and Bosch. So these new structures are changing the architecture, right? And so what does this mean? That you are closer to the manufacturers, or are you opening the field to new competitors that come out from other industry sectors? Wonderful question. What we've seen with OEM, many tried to take up the market share and create their own. And so to take the profit from Google or Apple, for example. What we are seeing is that even OEMs have understood that verticalization would not allow them to achieve their results. We've seen Volkswagen's experience and also Mercedes. We have seen that in the meantime, we're going back to the previous world, namely, the supplier will not only supply hardware, but also software, and the final OEM will have the freedom of developing and designing the software solutions that define the DNA of the OEM itself. And this is what I can share with you. Mr. Galantina, next year we will have new regulations coming into force relatively to raw material tracking as far as deforestation is concerned. Now, I know that you are working with the FSC tires that are used in F1. So how essential is it to have traceability of raw materials, not only in regulations, but also as a competition lever? Well, let's hope it will not enter into force next year. In this way, I believe that if they postpone the adoption of this law, we will be able to adjust and to manufacture these tires in the best possible way. Pirelli had already started to design and innovate and have a lot of research in terms of FSC certified natural rubber in their tires. Since 2021, we supply a German manufacturer FSC tires. F1 is also using, since 2024, FSC certified tires, and this will also be true for this year, 2026. So this goes beyond traceability, showing that plantations are managed to guarantee biodiversity, avoid deforestation, and also improve the living conditions of the workers in these countries. So ESG principles will be respected, and it will be possible to trace the FSC to the end user. So we will have the single farm be placed on the tire so as to be able to be informed that there was no deforestation performed in that farm. And the challenge is that it is really one of the objectives of Pirelli is to increase bio-based and recycled material in manufacturing the tires. We recently launched with Jaguar Land Rover 70% of bio-based material in its tires. And matching sustainability means recovering the material that is bio-based and recyclable without destroying the price margins. An interesting way of matching competitiveness and innovation is designing the network, as Davide just said. In 2022, a new factory was built close to the Fiat factory, and they did that by reclaiming a Seat tire factory and the warehouse that was serving the Motor Valley manufacturers. And in this way, they were able to avoid the transportation costs and the emission costs. And this is a model that we followed in Turin, but also in Romania and in Brazil, in Campinas. So using this, we can really strike the balance in terms of optimizing costs and also achieve sustainability, because the less transportation, the less we pollute, the less we pay.
So, Mr. Uraki, reducing complexity, integrating, transforming logistics into an ecosystem. So, is this thing only about making things more efficient, or is it rather a strategic factor in order to increase competitiveness across the companies? This necessarily needs to become a strategic factor. I would like to quote something that was said last year when we launched the proximity project. Mr. Pontremoli, he said the following during the event. It was the launching event, and he compared the 15,082 companies, as he would recall, and as he recalled this morning, the 50,082 companies inside the Motor Valley. He made a comparison between these companies and the neurons and synapses connecting all these neurons. I love to quote this sentence, this example, because this explains very well what we try to do on the territory. We want to be an accelerator. We want to be a facilitating agent. We want to be the glue of all these stakeholders. We want to keep the supply chain alive. these small and medium-sized enterprises, they create excellence not only in the Motor Valley land and territory, but also elsewhere. In order to make these companies survive, we require a cohesive partnership, not only among these companies, but also among the actors and players that favor the integration of flows, the delivery, and the reception of goods. So try to imagine what would happen if every and each of these company would have a single warehouse and a single factory. The same providers, the same suppliers who work for Ferrari also work for Dallara, Pagani, Lamborghini. They're all the same. So if we are good enough integrating them in our hubs, if we are good enough offering, if we are good enough to offer them a common service that is integrated and embedded, as Mr. Pontremoli would say, a logistic ecosystem that is integrated, well, this would be an advantage, a plus for the whole supply chain. Well, I used this last question in order to close this panel. The same question would be applied to circular economy. It has always been described, circular economy has always been described as something related to environment. Actually, it also applies to the industrial economy. It is getting a more and more strategic role. I would like to recall what I was saying before when it comes to circular economy. The first thing I would like to spread as a message is that circular economy should not understood as an additional cost for companies. It is rather our responsibility. We need to be able enough to reintroduce in the market these investments, being aware that cost and quality need to equal the virgin product, which actually comes from very far away places. A practical example of it would be the investment made in Imola in order to regenerate carbon fibers, residual carbon fibers that are manufactured by many companies in the territory. I love to mention here at this Motor Valley event that the Motor Valley has also generated a further valley, which is the Carbon Valley. In this region, especially, there are so many companies that process this material, which is carbon. Together with the University of Bologna, we have had a very long collaboration, and we started to work with this customer. Together with this customer, which is Lamborghini, we tried to find a solution to manage the residual parts and also to recover carbon fiber. So thanks to this collaboration with the University of Bologna, we tried to find a solution. And with Bologna University and Corti Metalmeccanica, a company from Imola, we have built a gasifying installation facility that wants to put in the market the same fiber with the same characteristics of the virgin product. We are now running different projects, especially the ones I mentioned before with CPC. Together with CPC, we are trying to develop new materials and new products. We have launched more than 1 year ago, together with Visa, Cashebrings and Mula, which is the firm, the firm from Faenza to refabricate the flaps of the cars. We are collaborating with Leonardo. In the aerospace industry, they use a lot of carbon fiber, and clearly speaking, the challenge for us is reintroducing in the market a product with a good economic value, an economic value that can be managed by the company. The benefit for the company is that carbon fiber has a very high economic value for the simple reason. In order to remanufacture it, you have to consume a lot of energy. And I would like to spread this message. We should not only take a look at the cost of energy. We should also learn how to use wisely our processes when it comes to production and manufacturing in order to consume less. This is what Jacopo said when he launched the session of this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. De Bello, Mr. Galantina, Mr. Ramonda, Mr. Uraki. Thanks to you all. I would like to call on the stage Paolo Poma, Chief Economist at Nomisma. I would like to call him on the stage. Thank you. Mr. Poma needs a great round of applause, please. Good afternoon. Please, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, everybody. So we need to be quick. We are here in the Motor Valley. Actually, I was given 20 minutes time, but I have to complete the speech in 12 minutes. A very interesting thing was the Pontremoli thing. This is the research mentioned by Pontremoli. We ran this research with Nomisma, and I have added some details that were not there when we presented the initial research. So let's do this quickly. First thing first, the supply chain is something big. It has to do with the whole economic supply chain, the whole training supply chain, and the whole tourism and culture supply chain. So this is the ecosystem in which we move. Today we only deal with the economic supply chain. We did something truly innovative. I didn't want to use the Ateco codes. The Ateco codes of automotive, let's say they are 20,000, 29,000, because the suppliers of the suppliers of the suppliers, the sub-suppliers, do not have automotive Ateco codes. They have different codes, industrial codes. So how did we manage these? We used the big data, a database of 5 million companies, and thanks to semantic intelligence with algorithms, we have matched the keywords to companies. When it came to the websites, to the production sites, and together with Motor Valley, we have created 144 keywords. I matched them, I crossed them, and then I managed to extract and to identify the companies that work in the automotive sector, even if their industrial codes are different, the Ateco codes are different. On top of that, we were lucky enough to know that the 6 supply chain managers gave us their industrial code. So we have different databases. The first one is the 15,000 companies that are the sum of all the suppliers of Lamborghini, Pagani, Ferrari, and so on and so forth. The big ones. Through Margot database, we did the sub-supplying analysis. Cleaning up and validation, building up perimeters. This took us 1.5 years of job, of work. 39,000 companies was the result of it, and 74,000 from the whole automotive supply chain. On top of that, I did another calculation. Companies, narrowly speaking, so the ones that participate in the car manufacturing, and complementary enterprises that are included in the automotive sector. For example, suppliers or like Pirelli and so many others, all the aftermarket companies. So production actually is just 20%. 20% is production and 80% is complementary products. The same goes for Margot. We found the same result. The total of the supply chain is there, and etc. So direct suppliers are the main suppliers, and they are split between those who manufacture the car and the complementary suppliers. Margot is there, and Margot was searched according to the database. But take a look at these percentages. In fact, they are quite similar. This is the total amount of the supply chain. A very interesting thing, an important thing, because the supply chain is not only located in Emilia-Romagna region. A great deal of suppliers are located in Veneto region, Lombardy region, and Piedmont region. Obviously, Emilia-Romagna is the very heart of the Motor Valley, but there are so many other regions included in this area and in these projects. In this database, I have matched to every company some indexes And these indexes are much better than the ones we use at university. We do innovation by patents. We do internationalizations through export. But here, the innovation index is thanks to innovation, research and development, individual patents, participation in innovating events. If your company participates in this event, your company will be assigned upon a scoring. Then just digital management, export, presence abroad, participation in trade fairs, trade fair exhibitions. These scores are very complex ones. They are much more real than the other scores. This is the 100 meters metaphor. The score ranges from 1 to 5. The closer we get to a high scoring, the more important commas are between 1 and 4, sorry, between 1.4 and 1.6, the difference is a big deal. Like in a run, like in a race, between 5 and 4.5, there is less difference. Now, let's take a look at the whole supply chain and at the innovation score. Direct suppliers. This analysis only regards production, so it only regards those companies that produce, that manufacture the app, because the rest of it was done at the Promotech, at Technocolor, and so on. Direct suppliers, the 44% of direct suppliers has value equivalent to 1. Average value is 1.7. This is the value of Italian manufacturing, 2.8. This is Margot, so we are taking distance from the rest of it. First thing first, Motor Valley is much more innovating than all the rest. When it comes to manufacturing, the closer the supply chain gets to the manager of the supply chain, the higher the degree of innovation is. Here, the total of manufacturing is 18%, multiplied by 3.2. This is 1.7, and more of the half of enterprises of the first level, of the first tier, have the top, are at the top. If we understand these as the top businesses, we reach 90 between level 1 and level 2. Now, what to say about internationalization? Take a look at the 83% of the companies with the maximum value, with extended supply chain and total of manufacturing. I would say that regarding the last data, I would say that there is a mistake here. If we had taken a look at internationalization only analyzing export, we would have realized that there are so many sub-supplying companies with so many Italian products. They sell to Lamborghini, so in their turnover, export is zero, but as they sell to Lamborghini and Ferrari, which compete at an international stage because the 92% of their turnover is international trade, they would have standards, they must have standards, as if they were super international companies. So the exportation thing is not always the right criteria. You can export handbars at a low cost, you can do a lot of export, but you are not innovating at all. Now, let's ask 3 questions, and then I will conclude. The first thing is a size important? I have taken the direct supply chain, the extended supply chain, the total manufacturing, and I have analyzed innovation, digital attitude, and internationalization, dividing them, splitting them in size classes, size clusters, okay? Take a look at this. The biggest one is 1.4, the medium one is 1.6, the small one is 1.8, and the micro is 2. So the more structured the company is, the more the excellent value goes up. And this is true for innovation, both in direct suppliers and extended suppliers, and the manufacturing, the total manufacturing. Not only some actors, but the whole manufacturing businesses. It is true for the digital attitude, and it is true for internationalization. But please remember something. Let's stress this. In fact, due to the fact I was telling about before, due to internationalization, the big, medium, and small value are very similar. Okay, there is not a big deal of difference among them. On the other side, in the other scores, there is a big difference. Second question for you. Is seniority important? We have divided companies according to their age, 25 to 40, consolidated 10 to 25, and new actors less than 10 years. What could have we expected that regarding digitalization and internationalization, new companies would have had higher values? But actually, it was not like that. In fact, let's take a look at innovation, new companies, consolidated, all this data. Please remember that 3 points after the point, 3 points after the point is a lot of stuff. Is a big deal. And this tells us a very important thing. Motor Valley is able to use accumulated knowledge, and the same doesn't happen in other supply chains. If you are an old company, that knowledge becomes a sort of brake for change. On the other hand, in the Motor Valley, if you have been there for a long time, you must be more innovating, because you can innovate thanks to your history. Let's now draw the conclusions. Some of you said before during the panel that you can work either with Lamborghini or Ferrari, and that would be fair enough. But actually, it is not like that. In fact, we have done this analysis only in the first level. I did something very straightforward. I had 15,000 companies. Actually, they would be 3,000. I had the tax codes, and I wanted to analyze. I wanted to make sure whether these suppliers worked for for six companies or 9. I didn't care whether it was Lamborghini, Ferrari, or Pagani. I just wanted to know how many clients these suppliers had. Well, these 6 work with 9 companies. This is what Pontremoli named ecosystem. For 5 partners, we have 24 companies. For 3 partners, we have 90 companies, and for this is 90, 80%, 100 companies. The 70% of suppliers only work for one single company, and the 17% works for 2 companies. It means that 80% or 90% only work for 2 companies. And let's conclude by taking a look at this slide, which is the best one for me. And I didn't use this slide in the past. I prepared this slide on purpose for you. And this idea came from my youngest collaborators. They suggested me that we should divide the different levels, the ones who work with at least 3 companies, and the mono company, single company suppliers. Let's take a look at these. Many suppliers, the 54% are top suppliers. Mono suppliers is 42%. Digital attitude, multi suppliers is 63. Mono is 52. So what is this telling us? This is telling us that suppliers that work for more partners have innovating dynamics and digitalization dynamics that are extraordinarily stronger and higher than suppliers working for just one company. So the ecosystem of Portremoli is not something thought for an ecosystem of values. It is actually good for the supply chain itself. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Mr. Poma from Nomisma. Thank you again. Let's now conclude this first session. I would like to thank you again for sharing these moments with us. See you soon.